How's everyone doing? Had a good lunch? Cup of coffee? You won't need coffee. This presentation's good. You'll be wide awake. Okay, well, we're going to get started. Could I have someone volunteer to close the doors for me, please? Thank you. So I hope you've had a good morning. You're at the right place. This is the best place to be right now. You are in for a good treat. We're going to have Cindy Villanueva. Cindy is the director of the business partnerships here at Concordia University. And she is also an adjunct professor here teaching undergraduate business ethics. She is the owner of Ernie Reyes World Martial Arts, a mixed martial arts and fitness studio right here in Austin, if you're interested. She is the founder and principal of Knockout Marketing Strategies. And she is a 6th-degree black belt master instructor, a frequent speaker, holds a bachelor's degree in management and ethics from William Jessup University from California, and a master and MBA from Concordia University right here, where we are currently. On top of that, she's a proud mother of 4 and a grandmother of 2. And in her workshop titled, "Wait, Is That My Hand Holding Me Back?" Cindy Villanueva is going to share her own story of overcoming her biggest obstacles to success and contentment. You'll learn to courageously confront your own limiting beliefs and instead construct a life of passion, achievement, and joy. We are very lucky, fortunate to have Cindy. Because of her, thank you for making the partnership with Prospanica and our Quinceañera conference. It's our 15th year doing it, and we couldn't be more honored than to have a great speaker, a talented woman like Cindy Villanueva. So help me welcome Cindy Villanueva to the stage.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad you guys are here. Did you have a good time this morning? I hope you went to some really good workshops this morning. Excellent. And you all got a chance to hear Shayla, who's amazing. So hopefully we'll just continue that, and I'm hoping to kind of wake you up a little bit because I'm always the speaker right after lunch. You know, you're kind of doing this, so hopefully that won't happen today. But if you do start nodding off and I just shout or I just key up really loud because I do own a martial arts school, then it'll wake you up, so it'll be good. Well, let's start off talking about all of us, right? When we first start life, we come out, and we all come out the same. We come out really ready to learn. We come out with the idea that life is an adventure, that there is so much to learn, there's so much to experience. We take risks. When we first start walking, you know, mom's trying to grab your hand, dad's trying to pick you up. No, I want to do it by myself. I want to do it by myself. The whole world is an opening for excitement and adventure. And that's how we all start off. We start off really, really well. But for every single one of us, we hit a speed bump. Somewhere along the way, something happens. Maybe it happens to you when you're really young. I know for me, part of that speed bump was when I was 10 years old. And I was the stereotypical fat kid, and I was made fun of. I was bullied mercilessly in the 5th grade. I wore braces, I wore glasses, I was the awkward kid, I was the smart kid, I was the brainiac. I was just bullied constantly. And you hit those speed bumps, and what happens? Maybe you got a divorce, maybe you lost a job, maybe somebody close to you that was very precious to you died. But somewhere along the way, something happens that changes your perspective on life, and it changes the way you look at yourself. And instead of seeing yourself as an adventurer and as a risk taker, you see yourself as someone who is less than. You start talking differently to yourself and about yourself. And consequently, you stop dreaming. You stop looking for opportunities. You stop looking at life as an opportunity. I want to talk to you a little bit about my story. So in 1960, there were these 2 kids who got married and had a little girl, and that was me. A couple of years later, my brother came along. Now, my parents came from very different backgrounds. My father, his family, they were farm workers from Mexico. So they would travel from Baja California up to the Central Valley where they were picking cotton and picking plums and all that stuff. And that's how they lived their lives, and they just went back and forth from Mexico to California. My father, when he was in the 8th grade, My grandparents told him, no más. There's no more school for you. That's plenty of school. 8th grade is plenty of school. He had more than his siblings. There's 5 kids. We need you full-time out in the fields. So my dad had to quit school when he was in the 8th grade. Now, my mom went through high school, but she came from a very poor family. They came from Texas and Oklahoma, and they moved out to California during the Dust Bowl era. And she laughs, she wasn't born yet. She was born in California, but she's seen pictures of her family. She says, like something from the Grapes of Wrath, coming out there in the rickety old car with your stuff all tied up to the top of it and everything. And they were very, very poor. And so my parents met there in Central California, and they had us. Now, because of my dad's background, he told us from the time I can remember, my dad was always saying, education, education. That's the way out. That's what you have to do. You have to be educated. And that was just drilled into us from an early, early day. There was never a question of, are we going to go to college? You were going to college. That's just all there was to it. And it was just drilled into us. And so I really internalized that. And so I worked really hard in school. And I was the straight A student. I was the kid that was going to get recruited all over the country, from colleges all over the country, and was the golden child in my family. I can remember my little abuelita would always tell me, ay, mija, you're going to marry the president of the United States. And my mom would say, she's going to be the president of the United States. I mean, I was always brought up that dream big, dream big. Life is an adventure. Take some risks. Go do these things. That's how I was brought up. And so when I got ready to apply for colleges, I only applied to 2 schools. I applied to Stanford, and I applied to UCLA. And the only reason I applied to Stanford was because my migrant farm worker dad really, really wanted a kid at Stanford. I applied to Stanford, I got accepted at Stanford, and I went to UCLA. Because that was my big rebellion, because I lived in San Jose, which, if you know California, is like 30 minutes away from Stanford. And I wanted to get away. I wanted to go far away from home, so I went to Los Angeles. Well, I was one of those kids that had the dream, right? I told you how I was brought up. From the time I was 15 years old, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to go to UCLA. I was going to major in political science. After I got my degree, I was going to come back to Northern California. I was going to go to Cal. I was going to go to Bolt Law School. I was going to get my law degree. I was going to move back to Los Angeles, work at the law firm where my uncle was a partner. And when I turned 35 years old, I was going to run for Senate in the great state of California, because you had to wait till you were 35 to be a senator. That was my plan. I had it mapped out from the time I was 15. I was one of those kids. Went off to UCLA, didn't know a soul down there. It was an adventurer. I was a risk taker. I was dreaming. I knew exactly what I was going to do. But man, oh man, what a difference a year can make. 1 year later, I had dropped out of UCLA. I had gone from being the golden child to being a stereotype. I was a Mexican-American teenager who was pregnant and had dropped out of school. My whole life had completely changed. I hit that proverbial roadblock, and as a consequence, I started thinking about myself and the world very, very differently. I wasn't a risk taker anymore. I didn't see life as an adventure. I was ashamed. I knew I had let my family down. Like, what am I going to do? I'm 19 years old. I got this baby. But my dad's voice always in my ear, education, education, education. So I tried going back to school. I tried to go to San Jose State. But I didn't have the maturity to be a teenage mom, try to work, try to raise a baby. So I dropped out of San Jose State. Well, the next few years were very different from what I had intended. Now, there were some great things that happened during those years. When Rebecca was 3 years old, I ended up getting married, had 2 more kids. Now, here's the lady who thought she was never going to have children, and I got 3 of them. Had 2 wonderful boys. I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm really proud of that time, but it's dramatically different from the plans that I had for my life in 1979 when I walked off bright-eyed and ready to take on the world at UCLA. At the end of that time, my daughter had left home already, I was jobless, divorced, raising 2 boys, 12 and 14. I was living in an apartment that I was actually house sitting for a friend of a friend. Dramatically different. And I saw myself in a dramatically different way. It happens to all of us, right? We get to that point where we trip and we stumble, and instead of picking ourselves back up, we entrench. We start looking for the safe way. What's the safe thing to do? How can I live my life and not trip again? How can I not fail again? Because the way that this is all there is. This is what I deserve. This is what it's going to be like from here on out. Well, that's not the end of my story. And the next several years were dramatically different from those previous years. Now, I don't expect you to read this slide because there's a ton of stuff on this slide, but the whole point is this. A lot of stuff happened in the succeeding years. I still had my dad's voice in my ear. Education, education, education. So I went back to school. And what I started in 1979 as a 17-year-old kid, I finished when I was 40. And I got a bachelor's degree. In fact, I got a double bachelor's degree. Working full-time, raising 2 kids, I got a double bachelor's degree. But I didn't stop there. I ended up going back to school again, and at 50, I got my MBA here at Concordia while working 2 full-time jobs. I also had a great job. I was making 6 figures. The little Mexican-American girl who one time went on a plane from San Jose to Los Angeles to go to Disneyland when she was 12, and that's the only time she'd ever been on a plane, traveled to 17 different countries, many of them several times. I've hiked on the Great Wall of China. I've put a little prayer slip in the Western Wall in Israel. I've wandered the streets of Sydney, Tokyo, Barcelona. I mean, I've been all over the world. I've been an entirely different life. 10 years ago, I opened my martial arts studio, and last summer, I trained and earned my 6th degree black belt during a 6-day marathon mastery test, during which I won the Best Physique Award for my age division, which was the women 50 to 59. So life changed dramatically for me from that first group of years to this group of years. So what's the reason for those changes? What is it that I learned as I moved from one part of my life to the next? I learned how to fight. And that's what I want to talk about. I'm not so special. This isn't like, hey, listen to what's so great about my life and how fabulous I am. That's not it, because I'm not. But I learned some really, really valuable lessons. There's 6 different imperatives that I want to share with you today. The first one is this: get in the ring. Get in the ring. So many times when we have gone through some life-changing event and we start thinking less of ourselves and we find ourselves in situations that we never intended, that don't match up to the dreams that we had at some point in our lives, we find ourselves, we're either spectators, or we're just watching the people in the ring, or we're judges. Look at her. Well, I know I could do that, but we don't get in the ring. You have to ask yourself, what keeps me out of the ring? What tragedy, what speed bump, what happened to me that I'm either sitting back or I'm judging, but I'm not in the ring? The second thing is really important, because once you decide you need to get in the ring, you got to make sure you get in the right ring. This ring here is the adult men's black belt division. I don't fight in this division. I have a black belt. These guys are bigger than I am, and they're stronger than I am. And yeah, I could probably get in a few licks, but this is not my division. This isn't my ring. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. This isn't where I'm going to succeed. You need to find the right ring. So many of us end up in jobs or in relationships or in situations because something happened. It was a reaction. We just sort of ended up there. And it's not the right ring. We need to do the hard work to figure out where exactly we're supposed to be. Look around in your life. Are you in a job because, your parents said, hey, you know what, you should be a school teacher. That's what you ought to do. And so you just sort of internalized that and you went ahead and you became a school teacher. And maybe you're a great school teacher, but that's not what you wanted. That's not what your dream was. If it's not your dream, it's not your ring. You have to determine what your dream is and find that ring, find that right ring. Or maybe you're in a ring that is just not right for you because you figure that's the best you can do. You've been beaten down by something that happened to you in life, or you had some sort of a failure and you've internalized that and you've said, you know what, this is as good as it gets. I'm not going to ever be in that great ring over there, that center ring over there. That's not my ring. This is where I'm going to always be. You need to get in the right ring, and you need to know that you deserve to be in the right ring, and that's where the magic really happens. Number 3, and I love all these pictures. All these photos that you're seeing are actually my students. So these are the little dragons, and these guys are the 4 to 7-year-olds. And they love to get in the ring. They love to get in there and spar. They get really, really excited about sparring, and they want to run out there. But one of the things that they have to do before they get in the ring is they have to get prepared. They have to put on the gear. You have to put on the foot gear, the hand gear, put in the mouthpiece, put on your head gear, put on your chest protector. You have to get prepared before you get into the ring. Well, what does that mean for you? For me, it was education. It was that voice in my head from my dad. You have to go back to school. You have to finish your degree. You have to go on. But maybe for you it is formal education. And if that's the case, there's a whole mess of us here from Concordia, and I'd be really happy to talk to you about bachelor's degree programs, master's degree programs, doctorate programs. Happy to talk about that. But maybe it's not something formal like that. Maybe you are so tightly wound. You're just a perfectionist. You are just so tightly wound. And what is great preparation for you is you need a yoga class. Maybe that's what you need to prepare to get into the ring. Maybe you need a mentor. Maybe you have a great idea for a new company or a new product, but you just need some mentoring. You need somebody who's going to help you get there, somebody who has the business acumen that maybe you're lacking, or some experience in your industry. Maybe you need a mentor. Maybe you need a coach, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. But whatever it is that you need to do, you need to ask yourself, what is it that I need to prepare so that I can get into that right ring? We think too often about ourselves in such a different way when we hit those speed bumps, and we don't prepare because we don't feel like we deserve it, or we feel like it's never gonna be different. The next thing is really important. Don't fight mad. When I was a blue belt, so this is maybe 9 months into my training, it was back in the 90s. When I would spar, if somebody would score on me, if they would hit me, I would get so angry, and I would just go out there and fight. And I had one of my instructors who would tell me, Cindy, you cannot fight mad, because when you fight mad, you miss opportunities and you don't see what's coming. What does it mean to fight mad in life? It means to be overcome by resentment. If you had a big dream that didn't come true, and now you're living a life outside your ring, a lot of times we can be really resentful. We can feel really angry about what life has dealt us and how we've ended up there. That doesn't serve you. Or maybe it's a lack of forgiveness. Maybe somebody betrayed you, somebody hurt you, somebody did something that damaged you or that set you up for failure, and now you're in a situation in life that you can directly tie back to that person, and you have not forgiven that person. It's so true, that old saying that, if you fail to forgive somebody, it's like drinking poison and hoping it kills the other person. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't harm them, and it doesn't serve you. So how do you let that go? And that doesn't mean not holding people accountable. That doesn't mean condoning behavior. It means setting yourself free. So by not fighting mad, find out those areas of your life where you're being held back by negative emotions that you won't let go or that you won't process. And maybe part of getting prepared for you is getting a counselor, getting a confidant, finding a place, a safe place where you can express those things so you can get them out and get them out of your soul. Because that stuff is toxic and that will hold you back, and it will never damage the other person. It only damages you. Number 5, mix it up. Mix it up. There's a lot of things that you can do. We have a lot of tools in our toolkit. And especially if you start the process of preparation, whether it's classes or it's mentoring or whatever it is that adds to your preparation kit, you can mix it up more and more. If I'm in a fight, I love a good slide hook kick. I love to slide up and hook kick somebody in the head. I could do that all day long. But if you fight me for more than a minute or so, you're going to know, oh, you know what? She likes that kick. So I know I'm going to step this way or I'm going to block this way. And suddenly it's not effective anymore. I have to do something different. I have to throw something different. I have to move around differently. I have to approach the fight differently. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're wondering, why am I just not breaking out of this? Why am I still in this same situation? You need to mix it up. Every good fighter knows you have to have a lot of different tools in your toolkit. And in life, you need a lot of tools in your toolkit. And this is where your network comes in handy. And this is where your mentors come in handy. And the people that you love and you can really confide in and who can share with you and give you feedback, that's where this is so valuable, that you can start mixing it up and doing something different. We need to reclaim some of that wide-eyed wonder, some of that sense of taking risks, of looking at life as an adventure, being willing to toddle away from mom's hand. We need to start reapproaching life in that way. So mix it up. Be willing to try something new. Think about an area in your life that you can try something new. I'm not saying do something catastrophic or something that's dangerous or that's life-threatening, although, sometimes that's not necessarily a bad idea. Think of something that you haven't done that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, because that, again, is where the magic happens. And number 6, listen to your coach. Listen to your coach. Now, these women here, all 3 of them are in their 40s. The 2 on the left are 2nd-degree black belts. The one next to me is a 3rd-degree black belt. And I'll tell you a little bit about them. Each of them started with me in cardio kickboxing. They did not take martial arts. They'd never taken martial arts. They took cardio. They just wanted some place to come and get in shape. So they came and took my cardio classes. And every single one of them at some point came to me and said, "Do you think I..." And I said, "Yes." "Well, but what?" And I said, "Yes." "But wait, yes, you can." And to their credit, they listened to me when they weren't sure of themselves. You need to find somebody who believes in you when you don't believe in yourself, when you're unsure of yourself. When I was testing for my 1st-degree black belt, I was going through a divorce, and it was pretty unpleasant. And that summer, a couple of weeks before my test, my soon-to-be ex-husband called me on the phone, and he was screaming at me on the phone. He said, "I can't believe you're going to go through with this, and what if you get hurt? And if you get hurt and you can't work, don't expect me to cover for you." And it was really ugly on the phone, and I ended up hanging up, but it really shook me. Well, I went to my black belt test. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. I've done it 6 times now, but the first time was really, truly just life-changing. And I went through my whole test, and everything was going great. Well, at the end of the second day, that night, if you were 18 or over, you didn't have to, but you could break a brick. And you broke one brick for every degree of black belts. For me, it was my first time. It was one brick. And so we were sitting there, and my grandmaster said, okay, anybody who's going to break a brick, come on up stage. And the first thing I heard in my head was, I can't believe you're going to do this. What if you get hurt? And I thought, oh, my goodness, what if I get hurt? I've seen people get hurt doing this before. What if I get hurt? And my instructor walked by, and he said, are you going? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, and I said, yes, sir. And I went and stood, and I'm walking up to the stage, and there's a whole bunch of people in front of me. And as I'm walking, I'm listening to my grandmaster talk. And he's saying, look, you are not going to write this on your resume. Nobody cares if you can break a brick. This is for you. This is a metaphor. This is you breaking through. So what do you need to break through? Do you need to break through negative self-talk? Maybe you need to break through a relationship. And I went, give me the brick. And I listened and I listened and I believed when I doubted myself. I had somebody else that I could listen to who believed in me. You have to find that person because we all stumble. And when we stumble, we start thinking differently about ourselves. We see the world differently and we see ourselves differently. And you've all gone through that negative self-talk where you've told yourself things that you would never tell another human being on the planet. Find someone who can tell you when you're saying, could I? Yes. Should? Yes. But what? Yes. Somebody who can look at you and say, you are stronger than you know. You are wiser than you know. You are more capable than you know. You can do this. I believe in you. Somebody who can do that for you until you can do it for yourself. It's absolutely essential that you look for that person in your life. Every single one of us needs a cheerleader. You need somebody who can tell you, yes, you can. I believe in you. Now, let's revisit those 6. Number 1, get in the ring. Stop just sitting by and watching life go by because something bad has happened or because life hasn't turned out the way that you thought it would. Don't let it go by. Don't just sit and become a spectator. But before you get into just any ring, be sure you get in the right ring. Make sure that you know where you belong. Where do your dreams kind of align with your passions and your skills and some experience? That's the sweet spot. That's where the magic happens. Find that right ring. If you need help determining that, come and talk to me. I'm happy to talk with you about that. I do a lot of work with folks around finding that area of your passion. So find your ring, get in the right ring. Make sure you get prepared. If you're going to just launch off into, starting a new business or something like that, get a mentor, take a class, do something, do the hard work up front so that you can have success once you get into that ring. Make sure that you don't fight mad. Get rid of all the garbage that we accumulate over time with our lives, the toxic stuff that weighs us down, that sits in your soul and sucks the life out of you. Do the hard work to get rid of it, not for anybody else, but for you. Make sure you mix it up. Make sure you try something new. I've learned so much from my one son, from all my kids, but one of my sons, my middle one, was so fearful as a child. Now, I've got thrill seekers on either end, but the middle one was scared of everything. And since he's become an adult, he has purposely put himself into situations that ordinarily would really terrify him. He's really afraid of heights. So this summer, he decided to go to Puerto Rico for a month and jump out of a plane. The month before, he spent a month in Costa Rica where he was cliff diving. He puts himself in situations that are uncomfortable because he said, you know what, Mama, I'm not going to be afraid anymore. I refuse to let myself be afraid. So he was telling me he was in LA a couple of weeks ago and he was on the Santa Monica Pier and he said, you know what, I climbed over the railing and I hooked my feet in and I leaned out over and he goes, I couldn't make myself be afraid. I couldn't feel the feelings. And he was so proud of himself and I was so proud of him because here he's doing the things to stretch himself. He's mixing it up. He's trying new things. And find yourself a coach. Don't try to do this alone. We're meant to work in community. Find someone who believes in you, who can look you in the eye and say, yes, you can. Yes, you can. How can I help? You are more powerful and you are better than you think you are. We all need to find that. And since we're at Concordia, I'm going to add a number 7. Listen to my dad. Education, education, education. We can't stop learning. We always have to keep learning. Now, does that mean going back to school? Maybe, but not for all of us. But we can always put ourselves in situations where we're learning. You're learning today, right? We've all learned today from the speakers that we've heard today. We've learned from the people that we sat with at lunch. You can learn from your families. You can learn from your children, from your spouses, from your boss, from your neighbors. You can learn reading a magazine. You can learn from reading a book. Don't stop learning. Education is absolutely essential. My migrant farm worker father knew exactly the right thing to tell me as a child. And that has been a guiding principle for my life, to always be learning, always be learning. I am more than happy to take your questions. Last time we had quite a few of them, but I'm more than happy to take your questions if you have anything for me. Yes, please. Great question. No, that's a great question. So we are so fortunate being in Austin. There are so many networking organizations. And, you know, I've dabbled in a lot of different ones until I have found ones that I really felt like I clicked with, where I felt like I was meeting people that I could learn from. There's so many different opportunities. I mean, you really literally could be out every night of the week, you know, here in Austin. But so I would say you can start there. You can look at some of the networking opportunities, and then just look around the people that you know, and start different kinds of conversations with them. You know, maybe you have a coworker that you only know because of the work that you do together at work, but maybe you take her to lunch or you take him to lunch, and you just have a conversation like, just tell me about yourself. You know, what kinds of things are you interested in? You'll find out amazing things about people that you don't know. I recently did a thing at my studio where I sent out a newsletter to the whole school, and it was a meet the instructors, and had a picture and a bio of all the different instructors, but there was a fun fact, and it was one thing that had nothing to do with martial arts. So fun fact about this particular instructor was he won an award for doing a soliloquy for Hamlet. You know, there's just different kinds of cool things like that. So find interesting things about the people that are around you. Who knows what that's going to breed? But it doesn't have to be a formal kind of a mentorship. Like, you can really be mentored by anybody who has expertise or knowledge or passion about something that you're interested in. Yeah, good question. Anything else? You guys are way quieter than the last group. It's that post-lunch thing. It's starting to hit. Yeah. Oh no, no, that's not the case. I was very fortunate. I did take some classes. I never stopped going to school. I'd take I'd go over to the junior college and I'd take a class or something like that. I went to a lot, like parenting classes, mom's classes, those kinds of things. For me, I believe a lot of times people will tell you you can have it all. I think you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. And certain things have to take a back seat to another. And for me, my number one dream and passion was being a great mom and raising my children. And, you know, I've had people ask me since then, oh, do you regret those 15 years and what'd that do to your career? It's like, I don't even think of it in that way. I look at the human beings now who are, you know, 36, 33, and 31 years old, who are amazing human beings, and I couldn't be more proud of them. That to me is worth any title, any elevation in my career. There's nothing that compares to that. You know, I feel like that's kind of my gift to the universe, is these amazing human beings. So it'll change. It'll really change. What my dreams are today are very different from what they were as a young mom. Yeah, good question. Yes, ma'am. It's very interesting. It's a completely different experience to going as a young person, because you know exactly why you're there, and you're very serious about. Well, I was very serious about my grades. I walked in the door saying, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to spend this money. There's no way I'm getting out of here without straight A's. That's just all there was to it, and I did. But it was a lot of hard work, but it's just a different kind of thing, and you end up having to be great with time management. You know, I was working full time. I worked at Cisco at the time, plus I had my martial arts school. So to go to school full time and do an MBA program while you're doing all that stuff, man, you better be good at time management. And I really relentlessly carved out certain time, like Wednesday nights from 6 o'clock until midnight was school. Like, that's all I did. That was all there was to it. My family knew that's what I was doing at that time. On Saturdays, after I got done at the studio, from noon until 10 o'clock, school. That was all it was. And then I would put in a couple of hours on Sunday if I needed to. But I was relentless about those times, and I just carved it out. You know, it's like when you're a kid and you're in college, you know, like, oh, well, there's this party. You know, I'm going to go to that. I'll study later or whatever. You know, kind of, it's more wishy-washy. As an adult, you just get it done. Yeah. That's so funny. It sounded like you asked me about sleep while I was doing all of that, but that can't possibly be what. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, you prioritize those kinds of things. You sleep when you can. You sleep when you can. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Right now, between my 2 jobs here at Concordia and running my marketing business and running my martial arts studio, I work about 95 hours a week. But that's by choice. Those are all things that I love. I'm really big about want tos, not have tos, and I do a lot of want tos. But to your point, you know, what is it that you want to do? That's what you'll make time for. And so one of the things that I'm doing this year, I always set myself goals. I'm not big into New Year's resolution or something, but I always set myself goals. And my goal this year has been to sleep more, because I've got the exercise and the diet really dialed in, but my sleeping is not great. And so I've been working really hard to get more of that. But yeah, there's trade-offs. And you know, if you're going to do your MBA, it's 2 years. It's just going to be 2 years that you're going to have to devote the time, and you're going to miss out on maybe some other things that you might want to do because you're going to be studying. It's 2 years. And look at the payoff. Yeah, good question. Somebody else? Did I see a hand over here? All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. This is me from Knockout Marketing and also at Concordia. If you want to stay in touch, I messed up the screen. I have business cards. I'm happy to hand them out to you. I would love to talk with you, and especially if you're kind of in that space where you're trying to decide what's next, what is my dream, where is my ring, how do I get ready to do that? I would love to talk to you. Thank you so much.